Friends, it's Sheryl from Tutoring with Sheryl. Just hopping on to give some parents a little bit of guidance about what they can do if their child is struggling with reading. Now, the very first thing that I want you all to understand that it is completely normal to have a child that struggles in some academic area of school. I know that as a child, I also struggled with reading. It wasn't that I didn't understand what was on the page when somebody, read it to me or I had support. But sometimes when I would come across words that I didn't know, I didn't have the tools to dissect the word or pull it apart to figure out what it said, let alone some of the meanings. So one of the things that I find a lot in my tutoring practices is that after I've done my initial assessment with my students, and I always start with an alphabet assessment, and I say, what is the name of the letter and what sound or sounds does this letter make? That's going to give me a very clear indication as to whether or not this student needs a little extra support going all the way back to the initial alphabet. It is not crazy to have a 5th or 6th grader that still does not know all of the sounds of the letters in the alphabet. The thing is that during those couple of years of COVID, these kids kind of missed some really important pieces of information. But it's not just kids that went through that experience. It could be a child that's, even in high school that is struggling. I know I market myself for kindergarten through 5th or 6th grade, but I help struggling readers of all ages. So if you have a junior high or high school student that's also struggling, I can probably help them. It really comes down to phonemic awareness. Do we know what the sounds are? Like when we hear them, can we mimic them? Can we look at a letter and say them? Can we replace letters in words? Can we do some of those skills first? Then can we look at the letters, make all those sounds? Can we then start to learn the letter combinations? And there's a lot of fancy terminology that I don't like to use with parents because I lose them very quickly. I usually refer to a lot of this as vowel teams or as prefixes and suffixes because the majority of parents out there know what those are. Consonant clusters, those are kinds of terminology that I use to make it family friendly, not educator friendly. And then we break words down into parts, but I don't start with breaking a word down into a part. I start with what are the sounds? Let's build those sounds so that we can break the words down. And through my practice and through all of my years of experience, I've just really gone back and done multiple trainings on how can we make this really work for students. So if you have a struggling reader at home, I have some suggestions for you. First of all, take a word. Let's say take the word box. Okay, box. And if you know that your child already knows what the sounds are, see if they can do this. Say, can you take the B off and add an S and tell me what that new word is? Box, socks. Okay, so see if they can do something like that. Also, when you're looking at words, if the child is struggling, let's say that you have, we'll go back to that word box. Can they look at the letters and say their sounds? Box. Okay. And then you can start to build on longer words like, let's see if I can come up with one right off the top of my head. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank. Okay. Battle. 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 That's probably not a kindergarten word, but it depends on your learner too. So looking at those words, can they take them apart? A lot of times when my students are reading novels, shared novels with me that I'm sharing on the screen, they get stuck and I'm like, okay, let's break that word apart into its pieces. And as soon as I tell them that, they go back to those skills that I've taught them and then they can literally sound them out. Same thing happens when we're doing our writing. I say, I want you to attack the word first. Go ahead and write down what you think. Sound it out. Say that word out loud. What does that look like? Some of my students can't type it and do that. I will say, grab a pencil and a piece of paper and write it down. Now type it out. Now, what you typed is this. Let's sound that out again. And as soon as they become aware of it, it just changes the whole situation for them. So that is another tip. Sounding those words out and using them in their spelling words and vocabulary words and things like that. And speaking of vocabulary, do not talk with the lowest vocabulary that you have to your children. think of the highest vocabulary that you have and use those words instead. When we use the highest vocabulary that we have, we help our child build vocabulary. And they're not going to be able to read things that are new information unless they have a higher vocabulary. So one example, I did a video, I think it's either on Instagram or YouTube, where I was just walking down the street and we saw some flowers. And I said, okay, well, what are some other names for these flowers? It could be a flower. It could be a rose. It could be a lily. It could be a bud, like it's just budding, or it's germinated. Let's talk about some of those words that go along with flowers or plants. So really think about your highest level of vocabulary and try to use that. I hope those simple tips and tricks will help you. Don't forget, go visit your library, get some books. You don't have to buy them. You can borrow them, return them. Have a print-rich environment where your kids, it's normal to pick up a book. Even if they struggle through it, you can sit down and read it with them. And a 6th grader or a 7th grader is not going to shy away from sitting down and reading a book with you. If you say, hey, I really want to read that book too. Can we read it together? Go ahead and invite them that way. Or say, let's go to the library and find a book that we can both read together. Let's see if they have 2 copies of it and let's talk about it. Or better yet, let's listen to it and we'll read along with it. That's a great way to support a struggling reader. If you would like more information about Tutoring with Sheryl, I'm going to share with you my screen. You can come over here to the Tutoring with Sheryl page. You'll find all kinds of information about how I work with students. I do work virtually. You can read testimonies, student testimonies, testimonies from parents. You can see what it's like to work with me. You can download my Tutoring with Sheryl packet. You can send me your contact information if you're looking to get started. And then I recently attended an event where I handed out a science experiment to the kids. And so that is also there. If you'd like to learn more about me, you can click on the About, the Contact. If you're already a student, you can log into your portal. You can read my blog. You can come on over to the Tech Coach for Tutors and see how I support tutors with growing and building their businesses. I want to thank you for joining me today. You guys make it a great day. And as usual, keep the learning going.